Hey everyone, this is Jace, and welcome to my guide for Bahamut EX2. If you're still struggling with Bahamut EX1, I actually already have a guide for that. I'll leave a card in the top right here, but I'll also leave a link in the description below. For EX2, the fight actually isn't all that different. There are just a couple of minor differences that I'll talk through during the guide. But first, let's go ahead and go through my party. So I'm bringing Sephiroth as one of my main DPS characters. He's rocking the Kuja's attire. In his main hand, he has an OB6 edged wings. That's one of the improvements that's happened since the EX1 guide. And in his offhand, he's running the Torn Wing instead of the Kuja Spirit Blade. For his summon, he's using, of course, level 5 Diamond Dust. For his materia, which should be in a different order, he's using a 4-star Blazara, mostly for stats, in fact, entirely for stats. He's using a 4-star Ruin right here, also for stats. And then I'm running a D-Faith on him. He's going to be helping out with reducing Bahamut's magic attack. The Blizzard and the Ruin Rush should definitely be switched, but I made a suboptimal build and it still worked, so whatever. For sub-weapons, we have an OB4 Sun Umbrella, we have an OB5 Silver Staff, and we have an OB6 Power Soul here. As far as his R abilities, here they are if you'd like to see them. Next up is Matt. He's going to be our secondary DPS. He's rocking the Killer attire. In his main hand, he's got an Overboost 6 Killer Hornet. His offhand, he's running Core Defender, so he's going to be the character that's handling all of our AoE magic defense up. For his limit break, we have maxed out Valiant Attempt, level 10 at least, maxed out for now. For his materia, we have a 4-star Ruinra as a stat stick. We have a 5-star Blazara Blow. This time it's going to be a stat stick as well. In the EX1 fight, this was his primary way of dealing damage, but that's not the case in this version. Then we have a 4-star Kira. He's going to be helping out with healing in a certain portion of the fight. For sub-weapons, we have an OB2 Bald Eagle. We have an OB6 Mad Minute, and then we have the Hell House Collar for some HP and some physical defense. Here is our abilities if you're interested in seeing them. And last but not least, we have Tifa as our healer. She's wearing the Amaranth costume. In the main hand, we have Lifeguard Wraps for healing, of course. And in the offhand, we have Tiger Fangs for magic attack debuffing. For her limit break, she has a now maxed out level 10 Somersault. She has a 5-star Ruinra Blow, mostly as a healing stat stick, but this is also going to be the main way that she's dealing damage throughout the fight. We have a 3-star D-Brave. She's going to be the only character on our team who can reduce Bahamut's physical attack. And then, of course, we have a 4-star Kira for single target healing. For sub-equipment, we have Chocobo Staff. We have an Overboost 3 4-point Shuriken. That's going to help with extending Tifa's debuffs. And we have the Hell House Cannon for some HP and some physical defense. Here are Tifa's R abilities in case you'd like to see them. You might have noticed already, her healing's actually pretty low, not even up to 1700, and that's still going to be enough. If you understand the fight mechanics, you can get away with that low of healing, as well as if you have enough defense across all 3 characters. So you can see that all 3 characters have at least some kind of boost to their physical and magical defense, and that's important. Alright, so that's the team. Let's go ahead and get into the run. Alright, so I mentioned that there were just a couple of differences between the EX2 version and the EX1 version. The first difference is that right at the beginning of the fight, Bahamut is going to use Dark Aura and buff his physical and magical attack. This looks a little bit scary, but the good news is you now have time to get additional magic defense up on your party, as well as to apply any debuffs that you need to apply. So in my case, Sephiroth is going to throw exactly 2 D-Faiths. Tifa is going to be able to handle the rest of the magic attack reduction for Bahamut. Matt's going to be using Amulet Tribute to raise the party's magical defense, and he's going to be able to get us up to 2 tiers of magic defense up before Bahamut gets Mega Flare up, and that's with an OB0 version of the weapon. And Sephiroth is going to focus on DPS, and we're going to use Aerial Frostblade one more time, even though it gets cut off, just to give ourselves a little bit of extra summon gauge there. And we're able to survive pretty handedly, with Tifa even staying in the green. He's going to go straight into countdown, just like he did in the previous version of the fight. I'm going to interrupt the first countdown number using Tifa's Somersault, so that we have a little bit of extra damage going into the countdown itself. And then throughout the countdown, I'll be swapping between Sephiroth and Matt to make sure that they're using Aerial Frostblade and Killing Slash respectively, only when the attack gauge is fully maxed. I'm going to be doing that pretty much throughout the whole fight, just to try and make sure we're getting as much damage as possible. During this countdown, Tifa is going to be just healing up the party, slowly but surely. we're going to be pretty much at full HP, if not full HP, by the end of this countdown. And that's all while Sephiroth and Matt are dealing the maximum amount of damage that they can. Just like in the EX1 version of the fight, I'm going to be using Limit Breaks and Sephiroth's Summon to interrupt Bahamut's abilities to delay him, and that's going to give our team more opportunities to build up ATB, as well as make it so we have a little bit more time to survive Bahamut's onslaught of attacks, because, as I'm sure you can imagine, he hits pretty hard with pretty much everything he does, so it's a little bit of a tightrope, but you can manage it just fine if you're paying attention and you understand the fight's mechanics. So here I'm actually a little bit behind in terms of buffing magic defense on the whole party. As soon as you finish the countdown, he's going to use 2 sets of Flare Breath, and he's going to go into Umbral Strikes just like the EX1 version. In this case, I'm still able to catch up on the magic defense debuff removal and keep Sephiroth alive with some single target heals. And just like the EX1 version of the fight, he's going to go right into another countdown here. In this version of the fight, I'm actually planning on letting this Mega Flare go off, so I'm going to be using Tifa to try and heal up the party completely to full so that I'm ready for the Mega Flare. In the meantime, we're going to be still doing as much damage as possible with Sephiroth and Matt, but towards the end of the countdown, I'm going to be holding Matt's ATB just to make sure we can get as many magic defense buffs up for the whole party as we can. Since we're trying to buy time, I'm still going to be using Limit Breaks to delay Bahamut a little bit here. Since there isn't a whole lot going on in this portion of the fight, I'm going to be mentioning something that I think you should consider as you are progressing Bahamut EX2. This fight requires a decent amount of magic defense, physical defense, HP, just general ways to survive hits. And sometimes that might be accomplished by even sacrificing a little bit of healing on your healer to make sure that they have enough survivability as well. That's the approach that I decided to take, but it took a decent amount of trial and error figuring out which materia I needed to get exactly the right physical defense and magic defense for everybody to survive reliably, as well as to make sure I could still cover all of my utility bases with, physical attack down, magic defense up, so on and so forth. So don't be afraid to make a few attempts and just kind of figure things out on the fly in terms of exactly what equipment your party needs. So here we are at the Mega Flare that I mentioned. For Diamond Dust here, I decided I didn't want to hold on to it for too long, so even though I'm not necessarily delaying any of Bahamut's attacks, I decided to just go ahead and use it. Somersault, however, comes up pretty quickly, and it's not going to deal a ton of damage because it's coming from our healer, so I figured I would just go ahead and hold on to that. We're approaching this Mega Flare exactly the same way. 3 tiers of magic attack down, 2 tiers of magic defense up, and fully healed. You can see that it deals more damage than the first one. This time, the whole party is almost all dead, but we're still able to survive it. Again, that's just from trial and error, me figuring out what was going to make my specific party survive. So if you survived the first one but died to the second one, just take some time to figure out what you need to make sure you stay alive. After this countdown, he's going to go into the Dive Bomb section, which actually brings us to the second difference between the EX1 and EX2 versions of the fight. In this version of the fight, he's going to use Dive Bomb once. So just like before, you want to make sure that whoever's being targeted is going to survive. In my case, I'm going to be using Sephiroth's Solid Barrier ability from his Torn Wing weapon twice on the targeted character to bring them up to high tier physical defense up. Matt is going to be contributing to the healing here, as you saw, to make sure that whoever's being targeted has enough HP to survive. And in some cases, Tifa's going to throw just one D-Brave for just a single tier of physical attack down on Bahamut. And I just figured out that that combination of things allows my party to survive regardless of who's targeted. The difference here is that instead of using Dive Bomb twice, he's going to use Dive Bomb and then he's going to use Umbral Frenzy on whoever's targeted the second time. Umbral Frenzy is pretty similar to Dive Bomb, except Bahamut is going to buff his physical attack by 4 tiers going into the ability. So for example, if you have him at 3 tiers of physical attack down, when he goes into his animation, he's going to buff his physical attack by 4 tiers, bringing him up to 1 tier of physical attack up. So it's something that you can handle if you address it beforehand. But if you don't do anything like I did here, Bahamut now has 4 tiers of physical attack up while he tries to shred Matt. Thankfully, Matt didn't need 1 tier of Debrave there. He can survive anyway. But you just want to be careful with your party and just kind of figure out what you need to survive there. The next thing that he's going to do is he's going to go into a stream phase. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use all 3 limit breaks here to just keep delaying him while we charge up more ATB on Tifa as well as Matt. With Matt, we have Killer Hornet as his main damaging ability, which also breaks Diamond Sigils, so he's going to be the one handling most of the sigils during this phase, but I still want to make sure that he has plenty of ATB stocked up. So delaying here is really going to help with that. When you go into the stream phase, Bahamut doesn't just sit there during it, he's actually going to be using physical attacks against your party, which is really noteworthy because, at least in my case, right now he has 4 tiers of physical attack up. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to make sure my party had as much HP as possible, and I wanted to delay him so we had a little bit of time to heal up in addition to stocking ATB for Matt. So Tifa during this is going to be using Debrave to reduce his physical attack while breaking sigils. Sephiroth is going to be using Blizzard, as long as I can make him do that. Couldn't stop him from using Defaith there, but we're able to break the stream, heal up a little bit, and we can go right back into dealing as much damage as possible. If I had been paying attention, I mentioned this during the gear overview, but I would have made sure that Sephiroth's Blizzard materia was in the 2nd slot, so he could have more of a boost from the support materia from his Edge Wings weapon, but I wasn't thinking when I made this party comp, or at least that part of the comp. Everything else is pretty well thought out, but just not Sephiroth's materia placement. Oh well. After the stream phase, he's going to go into Umbral Strikes. I've seen some people allow Bahamut to get the Umbral Frenzy off from the stream phase, because they didn't want to break the Diamond Sigils. That's a completely viable strategy. Just for my specific setup, I knew that I needed to break him because, well, he would absolutely kill whoever he hit with the 2nd Umbral Frenzy if I hadn't broken the stream phase. Next up is another countdown here. I'm not intending for this one to go off. I'm just going to handle it the same way that I handled all the other ones. I'm going to heal up a little bit. I'm going to deal as much damage as I can with Sephiroth and Matt. But after this, there actually isn't a whole lot more damage coming in. So healing up to full here is just a little bit of a precaution for me. Still going to be delaying Bahamut as much as I can with limit breaks and summons. But in my opinion, the hardest part of the fight is already over, depending on how much damage your party is able to deal. Surviving the rest of the fight actually isn't too bad, which allows us to focus a lot more on dealing damage. A little bit of a fun fact there, if you interrupt him when his Mega Flare gauge is empty, as in you've done enough damage to empty it, he'll still go back into doing the last little count, so you can use another limit break to delay him even further, even though you've already finished off depleting the Mega Flare gauge. Just something to keep in mind if that situation arises for you. I didn't know it at the time, but if I had known it, I would have used Diamond Dust earlier there. After that Mega Flare charge, he's going to go into Tail Flail, and then he's going to use a couple of single target physical attacks. Claw Swipe really doesn't deal all that much damage. I interrupted this one, but I swapped to defensive stance when he comes out of it here, and it doesn't really deal a whole lot of damage, so I wouldn't say you need to. Just feel free to test it out on your party. But his next attack is a spin attack, and that attack definitely deals more damage than the claw attack there, so I'd recommend swapping to defensive stance for that one. He's going to use Flare Breath again, so make sure you're ready to increase your party's magic defense. I wasn't ready for it. I completely forgot that he was going to do this, because really most of my progression was just getting to this point in the fight, so I don't actually have the rest of the fight all that well rehearsed in this video. So you'll have the advantage of knowing what's coming next because there's a guide here. So hopefully that helps you out. After that last Umbral Strikes, you don't need to do any more healing. He's going to start his final countdown, and you just want to focus completely on dealing as much damage as you can here. So now on Tifa, I'm switching to using only Ruin Blows. On Matt, I'm still using just Killing Slash. And on Sephiroth, I'm actually jumping to him manually to make sure that he's using Aerial Frostblade. And the reason I'm doing that is the entire party has physical defense down debuffs, and Sephiroth has access to a physical defense up buff. And so the AI, because your party is debuffed, is going to default to trying to get rid of the debuff that's on your party. That's not what we need right now, though. What we need is for Sephiroth to deal as much damage as possible. So I'm going to be manually telling him to use Aerial Frostblade for the rest of the fight. If you get to this point and you're struggling with damage, what I'd recommend doing is see if there are any other parts in the fight that you could be eking out more damage. When you're first progressing this fight, it's easy to get caught up in just trying to stay alive and to play very, very defensively. But throughout the entire run, I've actually been quite aggressive. I've only done as much healing as I needed to for the most part. Otherwise, I've let my party get pretty low. I've let them really get close to dying. So that's the first recommendation. My other recommendation is, I mean, this is permanent content. So if you're really, really struggling, you can always just wait and come back later. Bahamut EX2 isn't really going anywhere. That's the beauty of this kind of content. You don't have to rush or feel the need to pull just to clear it, because you're eventually going to be able to clear it anyway. So no need to sweat it. In my original clear, I ended up killing him just before Mega Flare went off, but I had a couple of upgrades since I got my original clear. I hadn't recorded the whole thing, so I decided to go ahead and clear the fight again so I can make a proper guide for it. And I guess my damage has improved a lot, or maybe it's my understanding of the fight that's improved, because we're able to kill him before he even uses Dark Aura and starts charging up the rest of Mega Flare. Let me know in the comments if you found the guide helpful. Feel free to like and subscribe for more guides and clear videos in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you next time. See ya!